I realized the other day there are two things that haven't moved on since 1935. One is education, and two is alcohol or addiction recovery. There is a neurological process. There is a science to it. There is gambling slightly different to alcohol. Drugs are different to both of us as well. But the principles are exactly the same. We talk about going to meetings and stuff, and I suddenly realized, well, I never hi, my name is Bruce, and I'm an ex-drug addict. And I'll use it and I'll talk about it when it helps in a situation, but it's not who I am. I left that life about, it's like me going back and saying, well, my name is Bruce and I'm a secondary school child, and there must be millions and millions that the government are making out of it. So I hate to say it, but I'm getting used to say it now. It's, do they actually want a solution?
Welcome to the second episode of the Leap podcast. Today's guest, we've got Bruce Rose from Rethink Drink. So how are you doing, Bruce?
I'm good. It's nice to hear a Fife accent again. I spent many years not far from you, and I moved up to the Highlands 10 years ago now. But we were actually down at Loch Owe. I was walking around Loch Owe the other day, just literally 3-4 days ago. So, which won't be too far from you, but it's...
That Loch Owe Meadows, was that?
Yeah. So we went for a walk around the loch with the dogs and through... We always used to call it Loch Gelly, but it's Logelly. And it's...
Logelly, aye. to the locals, anyway.
And the place next door to it, Ballingry.
Aye, Ballingry. Aye, a few rough areas there, but...
yeah, it's...
Anyway, we'll kick on, and I just would like you to kind of take me back to the start, kind of when you were young. Was it that you had a problem with alcohol when you were younger that kind of brought you into this space, or kind of how's your experience? Obviously, I've seen a lot of it myself, and again, I love everything that you do, so I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, well, sorry, I just lost my screen. There we go. Yeah, a little bit about myself. I was actually born and brought up in Kenya in Africa, and we lived out there. Well, I was born in '67, and in those days, there wasn't a huge amount of TV and everything in this country, let alone Africa. And so we had no TV, we had nothing else. And in those days, my parents, when it came to 6-7 o'clock at night, the gin came out, and they would just start drinking it at that time. Long story short, my dad started drinking a lot when we were there, and he ended up with quite a heavy drink problem when we were there. My folks split up. We then came back to Edinburgh, and I spent most of my childhood in Edinburgh. My dad moved back to this country for a while. The drink was still had a hold of him, and they ended up splitting up. He moved across to Canada. And from that point on, from a family point of view, when alcohol gets a hold of someone, or the family, it can really, like anything, like gambling, like any addiction, it can completely break things up. So it did that with our family. When I was late teens, I was going out drinking. A lot of the research around alcohol is showing that it's a hereditary predisposition. So long story short, again, the brain is getting a much higher reward from the alcohol than other people, so which is why some people are more susceptible to it. And when I got to 18, 19, 20, I would drink until I literally threw up. And then I would carry on drinking on a night. So I got to the age of 19, 20, and I thought, I don't want to go down the same road as my dad. So I thought, right, I'm going to pack it in. So I did. I packed it in. I did fantastic until I hit 21, and someone introduced me to something I didn't know much about, but something called hash. And that then went on to cannabis, and I was all day, every day, smoking dope. smoking weed, and then that moved into speed and coke and mushrooms. And then I went to Spain. I started using something called mescaline in Spain, which is a hallucinogenic, and then I did that for about 10 years, just like any addiction, whether it's gambling, drink, drugs. Nowadays, what I was taking was quite mild compared to what even the kids are taking nowadays. But it was enough to mess up my life at the time. When I hit 30 after 10 years, everything, I was losing jobs, I was losing relationships, I was losing, everything was just a mess. And so I just stopped cold turkey in those days and went off and did some other stuff, got married. And then the business I was running at the time it wasn't doing so well. So I was offered a job working in the homeless shelters in Edinburgh at the time. And I just thought, yeah, I would love to do that. I would just love to do it. I went off and did it as well as running the business, but I loved it so much that I ended up packing in my business. And they offered me a job working in the Highlands, working in a rehab centre, managing a rehab centre. So I moved up to the Highlands. I managed a rehab centre up here that ran out of funding. And then I got a job as a deputy manager in a rehab in Inverness. And during that period, I was starting to get really disillusioned with it because the amount of relapses that I was seeing through alcohol was scary. I mean, it wasn't just one or two, it was right across. I mean, it was the stats I've since found out are around about 90 to 95%. And it was horrible. It was just, people were coming in, they were trying their best, they were doing everything they could to stay sober. And then the minute they left the rehab, within most cases, within 3 months, 90% had relapsed. And it was just, long story short, I went on the internet and I thought there must be a better way of doing this. There's got to be. I went on, I had a look at a few YouTube videos, and I came across the program that we run just now, which I'll explain if you want us to later on. But
yeah, of course.
So that's a very, very brief summary of 57 years.
What I would take for that is, like, when people do go to rehab for whatever addiction it is, they're kind of desperate. It's like almost like, right, I need to do something about this. And to get that such high figures of relapse is not good enough. It's just simply not good enough. And it needs to be reevaluated. I mean, let us say the people it does work for, brilliant, because we all want the same end goal in addiction, to help people that are struggling. But relapse rates that high is just simply not good enough. And obviously you will explain about what you're doing with Rethink Drink, and let us say you've got kind of proven stats with it. So it's kind of, for me, it's a no-brainer to go with the science and go with the facts rather than kind of what we've done for years. And let us say it's no to knock people that are doing it that way and doing it well. That's certainly not what I didn't believe both of us are wanting to do. But there is other options out there, and there's other options out there that have got evidence to back it up. And let us say I'll let you explain a bit more about that. Aye.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing I do live TikToks, and I was doing one this morning, and a lady came on. She'd lost her son. She said it was about 14 weeks ago, and I suddenly got really, really rattled this morning, and I'm sitting there going, I've spent so long, like yourself, where there are in alcohol, there are loads of different programs that work. The AA works for some people, CA, NA, Smart Recovery, rehab centers. They all work for some people, and for those people that they work for, they are the best thing in the world. There's nothing to take away from that. However, when I started looking at it, I started to realize that 90 to 95% of people who go down an abstinence-based road will relapse. And like you say, that's no fault of the individuals. It's no fault of the programs, the organizations, or anything. It's just that they are using a model of recovery that was started and been used from 1935, which is stop drinking, stay sober, do a 12-step process. Now, if that works, great. But the reality is, for 95% of people, it doesn't. And the thing that really, really frustrates me with alcohol, I mean, alcohol is a completely different thing, but with alcohol, that today there is a tried and tested, not only tried and tested, it comes on the back of 35 years of research and 125 clinical trials that shows the neurological science of what's happening in the brain when someone drinks alcohol has been researched, and they now know exactly what causes addiction or alcohol addiction. They know that there's a medication available that can regulate and control the whole process, but it's not being used. And it's just occasionally, like on TikTok this morning, when I'd read the lady she'd lost her son 14 weeks ago, I'm thinking that shouldn't be happening. It just should not be happening today. And it's the suicide things in gambling, I believe, are even higher. And it just that what we've used so far has got us to where we are today. But surely there's got to be discussion. I mean, we're both in Scotland. I don't know where this goes out to, but in Scotland, surely the government has to start looking at, there is a neurological process, there is a science to it, there is gambling slightly different to alcohol, drugs are different to both of us as well. But the principles are exactly the same.
Yeah. I think they're very similar in a lot of ways, that you're craving chemicals, and like with gambling it's dopamine, with alcohol it's endorphins, and they're very similar in different ways because you're craving that feeling rather than we're turning into different things to get that feeling, but it's the feeling at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find it fascinating that in 2026, that with all the research and the science that goes on, it would take medical people, scientific people, it would take them a week to go and have a look at what's going on in the brain when someone's gambling. What's actually going on? Why do people find it so kind of, I need to put a bet on, or when it comes to alcohol, which it has been done for alcohol, thankfully, what is happening? I said this morning, and it really fascinated me, that I even impressed myself, which was quite scary. But I suddenly realized, I'm sitting there thinking, the alcohol is mood altering, it's mind altering. It changes how we think, it changes how we behave, it changes decisions that we make. It changes lots of things about our life, to the stage where people will lose marriages, jobs, businesses, homes, all that kind of stuff. So that's all happening in here. So why are we trying to treat it with talk therapy? It's for some reason there's a neurological chemical process happening in here that's changing behavior and changing everything else. But the long-lasting solution is, well, let's just sit and talk about it. Let's just spend an hour every day or every once a week sitting talking about it. And I always use the example of epilepsy. I've got epilepsy, which is a neurological condition. It's different to alcohol because alcohol is endorphin, epilepsy is electricity, but it's a neurological process. So why, if I go to the doctor and say, listen, I'm having lots of seizures, doctor, can you help? And the doctor says, well, Bruce, I want you to go to your local epilepsy support group. I want you to go through the 12-step program for epilepsy. And the next time you have a seizure, we're not going to blame the fact that we're not treating it properly. We're going to blame the fact that there's something wrong with you, that you decided to put some strobe lights on or do something. And we're going to blame it on you, rather than saying, actually, there's a medication sitting here that the doctor could prescribe me, but the doctor won't prescribe it to me because he wants me to use willpower. And 95% of people that try treating epilepsy with willpower end up having a seizure. It's the same kind of, I know it's a different.
I know, it's a good kind of comparison, I think. Obviously different, but very similar to, in your case, with what you do with Rethink Drink, you've kind of got a solution or a alternative solution with Naltrexone, and obviously the stats to back it up, and we're not using it. And obviously it probably all comes down to money, that they didn't want to prescribe naltrexone because it's easier to just send people to for free support. But that's where I've seen people online and TikTok and other platforms where people say, "Oh, can you're charging for your service?" It's like, but these services work. That is priceless. That is priceless to someone with an addiction. If a service costs money and it works compared to a service that has got a huge relapse rate, obviously try it. But if it doesn't work for you, then try alternatives. And that's kind of what I believe as well. Like I sat at these kind of group meetings and I just couldn't get my head around how I kept relapsing. And I just thought to myself, there's got to be alternatives to doing this, because it wasn't working for me. I'd go to the doctors would just say, here's antidepressants. And it would be like, but I'm depressed because of the gambling. No, because depression's not the problem. So let's tackle the problem. And every time it was just like, I was just in repetitive cycles, just negative cycles, life getting too much for me because I kept turning back. And the more that you turn back to someone that is affecting your life and out of your control, your self-worth and everything goes, because you know you shouldn't be doing it, but you keep doing it. And that's where it's very hard. And I do believe that we need to look at alternative solutions. And when you've got someone that's there that shows that it works, I just didn't get, because I believe everybody working in the addiction space should be, the end goal was getting people off the addiction or in a better place with it. And I just question it sometimes when I see, obviously for the gambling space side of things, I just believe that there's so many charities and organisations out there that it's almost like we're no fixing the problem. Like there's year on year, like I've been to gambling conferences and stuff, and it's everybody there know about the problem, yet we're talking about what's it's the black market, it's this that's to blame, and then the next year it's the same conversation, and it's like, right, where's the actions? At my work, we got a daily operations board, and you take actions if someone needs done, but I didn't see any actions happening, and I see no results because of that. So I just think it needs to be looked at in a different way, and let's try and get better results, because what's happening isn't good enough, and certainly in my space anyway. But I just tell me a bit more about kind of what you're doing.
On the alcohol side of things, it's the biggest challenge that we have is. See, this is where you're coming. I know you come across this as well. The biggest challenge that we have with it is you get to a point where you actually pause before you say anything, because there's a much bigger picture out there. And I don't know why I pause when I say it, and I'll just say it out front. The issue in the alcohol world is we work with a medication called Naltrexone. So it's when people drink alcohol, it produces a huge amount of endorphin in the brain. And that's what people become addicted to. It's not the alcohol. There's nothing addictive about alcohol. It's the endorphin in the brain. So there's a medication, Naltrexone, that regulates the endorphin reward. As a result of that, what they call rewires the neurological pathways in the brain. And as a result of that, it removes the craving. So it literally reverses the addictive process in the brain. And it works right across the board with almost every single person we work with. It's not just 5 people out of 100, or it's literally right across the board. So when I first heard about it 7 years ago, I thought, well, in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, I'll have limousines at my front door from the government. They'll just be wanting to know exactly how this works. Long story short, I've had conversations with the Scottish government. I can say this. I can probably say this here. If I had not enough money, I would take the alcohol policymakers to court tomorrow, because they know exactly how our model works. They know the medical research that's been done, but they are refusing to use it. And they're refusing even to get into a conversation with it. And the main reason for that, and I won't mention any names on here, but I have had a conversation with someone who was an alcohol policymaker for the Tony Blair government. And they told me very specifically that for naltrexone to be used through the NHS and through on a big scale in Scotland, they need to relicense it for use alongside alcohol. That's another whole story, but it needs to be used alongside alcohol initially. So it needs to be relicensed for use for that. So to do that, it's going to cost 100 or 200 million to do it. Now, the pharmaceuticals, again, that's another story, I won't go into it, but the pharmaceuticals, there's no money in it for the pharmaceuticals, so they're not interested in the process. So the only people who can change that licensing that would then create an alcohol solution for right across the board is the government. Now, the government how do I word this? The government, the government have lots of conversations with the alcohol companies, and there's a lot of tax money to be made from alcohol. There's a lot of revenue to be lost if the NHS and people started using naltrexone and saw the results that we saw. The income or the tax money for the government would dramatically shoot. So it's not an issue that it doesn't work. It's not an issue that the science isn't there. It's an issue that it's specifically a financial solution. And I say everywhere I go that alcohol dependency today is completely treatable. And if anyone hears this and has a way of trying to get this publicly known, the better. And the same will apply with the neuroscience that they've learned from alcohol and from what we do. They are now starting to apply what was learnt in here, things like your Ozempics, your GLP-1. The reason GLP-1 is so big today is because of the research from naltrexone. And they're realizing that the brain is full of receptors, and when someone's gambling, it creates a chemical in the brain, it hits a receptor in the brain, and you get the reward, dopamine. Yep. With alcohol, you drink alcohol, it produces endorphin, it hits the receptors, you get the reward. When people eat food or overeating with food, it's glucose and sugar. So it's carbs, it's sugar, and it hits a GLP-1 receptor in the brain, and it gives you the reward. So Ozempic is just an opiate blocker, a GLP-1 blocker, and it lowers the reward from the sugar and the glucose. So therefore, people lose interest in eating the volume of carbohydrates and sugar, and they lose weight. Exactly the same with alcohol. You take naltrexone, it sits on the opiate receptor, it lowers the endorphin reward. People want to drink they don't want to drink the amounts that they drink. And with gambling, I'm sure it just needs some input into the research, so they can do the research to say, okay, this is the medication that will work for gambling, and you've got a solution.
Yeah, I've read a few articles on naltrexone and gambling, and I really believe it will work as well. But it's obviously not as researched as with alcohol. So, but I think it's fascinating, like what you're saying there, and I believe it is totally about money. But that's where it's like, there's individuals ruining their lives through alcohol, ruining their families' lives, ruining their kids' lives, ending up no being here because of alcohol. And it's like, where does people's lives come into it instead of money? Or as money makes the world go round? But it just seems morally wrong for me that people are being neglected in this kind of way, when a solution or an alternative, certainly a solution that's proven and it works, is out there.
The crazy thing that gets me, and and I've realized it's exactly the same for any addiction. With alcohol, you consume alcohol, it produces endorphin in the brain gets a reward, and the brain eventually becomes addicted to the endorphin. So the addiction is to the endorphin. When it comes to something like you have GABA receptors in the brain. So when you're taking your downers, your diazepams, your dihydrocodines, tramadols, all that kind of stuff, It's the reward is coming. You take the medication, it creates a chemical in the brain, it hits the GABA receptor, or it activates the GABA receptor, and that the brain then becomes addicted to the reward that it's getting from the diazepam or whatever it is. So I don't know enough about gambling, but again, it will be the same thing. When people are putting a bet on, it's producing a chemical in the brain, it's hitting one of the receptors in the brain, and it's creating a reward. The brain becomes addicted to that reward, and therefore, when the major thing with every addiction is everyone thinks that alcohol's the issue, or putting the bet on is the issue, or using drugs is or the cocaine is the issue, or heroin, or diazepam or something is the issue. All that is the substance that's activating a chemical response in the brain. And so I don't know enough about gambling, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine on gambling, when you stop, because the principle is exactly the same, when someone stops gambling, it's not the actual going into the bookies and, well, that's part of it, but it's not the actual putting on the bet, it's the buzz, it's the reward, and that is what's giving you that buzz and the reward is the dopamine endorphin in the brain. So therefore, we know the science. We know what's happening with it.
Yeah, it's like the more I've been doing Gambling Leap for just over 19 months now, and obviously, especially the first 12 months, I was trying to kind of every day I was kind of looking at research and stuff, and because I believed that my recovery was different to so many other people. I concentrated so much on rewiring my thought process, and I knew, like you say, that I was craving that feeling. So it was like, how do I change that so I'm getting different kind of neural pathways to my brain opened? So I done it by doing like cold water therapy. So I'm getting the kind of natural dopamine release for going in the cold water. I didn't want to do it, but when I done it, I overcome it. And then meditation, stuff like that, it's kind of stuff that kind of brings you back down to the baseline level. And like, obviously I was rushing about, I used to leave money in the machines and stuff, and again I would have that many bets on, I just didn't know where I was. And I think when you it's about creating a self-awareness for me. Obviously what I'm doing with the app that I've created isn't going to be a 78% success rate, but I believe doing different techniques that are proven to rewire your brain, like say meditation, like say cold water therapy, like say journaling and reflecting on how your day went, these will work for a lot of people. Or it's certainly, let us say, an alternative to what's out there. And I'm kind of excited, obviously, for that getting out there, because it's telling people to focus on their nutrition, their getting out there doing steps. It's just like setting small goals to try and change your focus so that you're no focusing on or you're just no escaping for your addiction. So it's just creating so many different things that could help. Like I say, it's not going to work the exact same as what a Naltrexone, for example, could do, but it will certainly help create that healthier mindset where you break free for your addiction, or certainly get into a better place with it.
But a lot of it is the same principle. So you see things like your cold water therapies. I take my hat off to you. Some people jumping in a cold tub in the middle at this time of year. However, my wife goes swimming in the sea at this time of year, and there's lots of people that do it, and I think you guys are nuts. But what is happening when people are doing it, again, the reason you hear so many people, they're cold water or swimming or plunging in the morning or something like that. What's happening is the minute that you get into that water, the brain instantly produces a massive amount of endorphin. It's the equivalent, apparently, of Coke, taking a line of Coke.
Yeah.
And you get that instant increase of dopamine endorphin, and then, unlike drugs and everything else, which will drop off very quickly, the come down of just jumping in some cold water in the morning is about 5 hours. So I would say to some people, do it twice.
but there's actually see, if you do it every single day, you start to become you don't get the same feeling. It's the same as kind of like all the kind of things that we're speaking about. The more, like, there's a guy I think on TikTok, he's been in a cold bath 520 days in a row, and you could see him every day now getting more ratty every day, because your body becomes used to it. So you're not getting the same dopamine release. Just like when I was betting maybe £5 bets or £10 bets, you become you didn't get the feeling. You didn't get the dopamine release from the small bets. So you need the kind of big bets to get that feeling. So it's the same with cold water therapy. If you do it every day, you don't get the same feeling. So again, it's fascinating, and I would say totally relevant. It's just realizing that sort of thing happens to your brain.
Yeah. And it's really interesting when I work with our clients. The long story short, for our program to work, believe it or not, people actually have to drink alcohol alongside naltrexone, because you have to rewire the pathway to do everything. So sometimes people will not take the medication with us. So that sometimes people will play what I call Russian roulette with the medication. Sometimes they'll take it, sometimes they won't. And it was I've learned this from someone else that was working in gambling, and they were saying that if someone is taking our medication and not taking the medication, it's creating something called
intermittent reward.
Intermittent reward. Thank you. and I said, well, what's that all about? And it said, well, if the brain is taking our medication, it gets a lower reward. If it doesn't take the medication, it gets a much higher reward. So that's just controlled by the medication. But then what happens is, if the brain doesn't know, is it going to get this reward or this reward, it creates more endorphin or additional endorphin and an additional addiction, because the excitement is not then about getting the higher reward or the lower reward. It's about, what am I going to get? What am I going to get? Now, when I used to take magic mushrooms, some people say I'm absolutely crazy, but the most exciting thing to me about the mushrooms, the trip was, if it was a good one, it was good, but if it was a bad one, it wasn't so good. But the exciting thing for me is,
you didn't know what you were getting.
Is this going to be good or is it going to be bad? But I've realized as well with gambling, that I use this commonly and you can tell me if I'm right or not, but if someone's betting on 5 horses, they don't know which race is going to come in. So it's not necessarily the win that's the exciting thing. It's like, is this going to be the race where it's going to come in?
Like I say, like when I was in the bookies, I used to be maybe playing the slot machine, and I would be running over to the counter to get a dog on, and then I would be trying to place a bet on one of the other machines so I would have the machine on autoplay, so I'd maybe take 20 autoplays, so it would just be spinning away, and I would hear it in the background, so I'd hear if I was getting the bonus. So I would be placing my other bets. Obviously, that would be running itself. I'd maybe put my football bets on. My dog race would be on, and I'd just be getting so much kind of dopamine release from that. Wow. And I like, you're constantly chasing it. I wasn't happy playing one. Like, you get the responsible gambling messages that come up on these slot machines as well. So it comes up after you've played it for 30 minutes. It comes up saying you've played it for 30 minutes and you've lost £100, for example. As soon as that message comes up, and I've seen it I've seen every other person is the same. It's like they're playing it, it comes up, they need to wait 30 seconds on basically their next bet. So they end up playing the next machine, or they end up running to place another bet because they didn't want to wait 30 seconds. They didn't want to get told that you need to wait, or you can, I mean, to tell somebody that's got a problem with gambling, watch how much you're gambling. In that moment, there's no chance, absolutely no chance they're going to stop. It's when they've lost their money, and I get a lot of messages like this. I get a lot of people who have lost their money. They feel low as can be. I really want to stop gambling, and then a couple of weeks later they're back at it because they've got money again. They're craving the buzz, and again they'll maybe lose it all, and then it'll be a message, I'd really need help. And it's like, well, at some point you need to kind of take a bit of ownership and need to change the way that you're acting. Kind of if you didn't change your behaviours, you're going to keep going down the same path. And let us say, when I was going through my cycles, I was basically told this is the way to do it, and this is the only way to do it, and it wasn't working for me. So each time I was going back to the method to stop, and being able to stop, my self-worth, let us say, was going down each time, because I was thinking the way out, or the only way out, is what I'm getting told. You need to do it different. You need to go to 2 meetings. You need to go to 3 meetings a week. You need to keep in touch with people more. You need to phone more people. And I tried them all, and it didn't work. So that's when it was like, right, I need to evaluate and tackle this differently. And when I did, that's when I started getting results. So, let us say, the more methods out there, the better for addiction in general, I believe, is only a good thing, because it simply doesn't work for everybody. Let's say it does work for some people, and great. Certainly no knocking that in any way. But I've been in the position where I feel like I've nowhere to turn, that I didn't want to be here because I keep going down the same road and relapsing. So that's why I'm passionate about what I'm doing, is because I know that there's people out there like me that feel like they've no way out. And unfortunately, some people didn't end up still being here. So it's not good enough. It's not good enough. We need to do better.
And I think I think we're going through a transition with all addictions, whether it's gambling, drink, drugs. The Scottish government are showing face at the moment for drugs because there's a big drug issue, and it's now a vote winner, so they're looking like they're doing something. But I do genuinely think that even though we're in a transition at the beginning, I believe, of a transition time where the old version of just stop doing it and abstain from it will still carry on, and it works for the people that it does work for. But the exciting thing now, I think, is that the understanding of the brain, the understanding of the neuroscience has come forward leaps and bounds. So whether it's gambling, whether it's drink, whether it's drugs, again, I'll say it up front, I genuinely believe that there is I can't talk about it on here, obviously, but there is a solution to heroin. There is a neurological medical solution for heroin. And I've seen it. I've seen it happen in front of my eyes. But again, trying to convince a government to implement it and put a bit of money into it is the battle. But the good thing is it's there. So there is a solution to heroin. There is a solution to cocaine. There is a solution to ketamine. There is a solution to alcohol. There is a solution to gambling. It's just a case of, if we could do it, it needs people like yourself, ourselves, from all the different areas who are actually saying, do you know what? We can use some of the old processes or some of the things that we've learned from before, but let's introduce medicine. Let's introduce neuroscience. Let's have a look at endorphin. Let's have a look at dopamine. How can we deal with dopamine? If a huge amount of dopamine is being produced when you're gambling, then we now know this is going on here. The scientists can find a solution to it, surely.
And it's like I think I've heard you say this before. It's like everything else in life has evolved. How we replace the roads, how we do everything in life has evolved, but the recovery methods hasn't. So I think we need to get to the stage.
I realised the other day there are two things that haven't moved on since 1935. One is education, and two is alcohol or addiction recovery.
Aye, that's a great point as well about education. It's like, can some subjects out there are they really relevant? I was at a funeral this morning. It's like, it's upsetting seeing somebody close to you not being here. Young people didn't get any. You didn't get any kind of. It happens to everybody. It's going to happen to everybody. So just how to deal with emotions, like losing someone close to you and stuff. I just think that things like that need talked about. And addiction, there's just so many things that everybody's going to get kind of going to be part of their lives that they need to kind of deal with.
Yeah, I suddenly realised that if you look at cars, a car engine, a car shape, the mechanics, the fuel, everything has all developed and changed. How we build houses has all developed and changed. How we build roads has changed. Everything that we do in life, the making of clothes has changed. Computers, phones, mugs,
AI.
coffee, AI, everything has changed. But when we look at it, and again, not to knock any models around, in regards to the alcohol and the drugs industry and the gambling industry, actually, that everything started in 1935 with AA. And AA decided that, okay, the solution is abstinence. Now, in 1935, abstinence was a good option. You got to stop. They developed a 12-step program. They started looking at higher power, because in those days, higher power was a big part of life. So they created a model and a program. Now, over the years, AA then broke into CA, NA. There's a Gambling Anonymous.
GAI.
GA. But they're all built on exactly the same
model.
principle as 1935. Then I went into rehab center management. Rehab centers are exactly the same, whether they're private rehabs or NHS or government-run rehabs. They're exactly the same process. They're just residential versions of AA or CA. We had a couple of guys that came into our rehab for gambling. We didn't know what to do. It's like, well, okay, what do we do here? We had no idea. But they are just residential abstinence-based programs. So if you look at every single program that's out there, they're all based on a model that was started in 1935. None of them have changed. They've changed the name. They've changed little tweaks about, like, smart recovery has changed things slightly, but it's still built on abstinence, stop drinking, or whatever. We need to move on.
What would you say about someone that kind of refers to themselves as an alcoholic, especially someone that's maybe been 10 years since I've had a drink? Do you think that's something that we should be doing, or?
Sorry, say again. Should we be using the word alcoholic?
Aye, so I'm saying, like, if someone's maybe went 10 years without a drink, so they're some people say in recovery, or some people say they're recovered, but if they still refer to themselves as an alcoholic, do you think that's something that we should be doing? Do you think that's a positive thing to kind of be saying to yourself?
I've got quite a strong point of view on this one.
I think that's just kind of conversations we need to be having, because I'm pretty sure you're going to say something similar to me. If I refer to myself as a gambler, then it's taking me back to the times where I was being manipulative. It's taking back the times where I was lying, even stealing, doing things like that. None of that even comes close to it in my life now. I try and be as honest as I can. So do I need to be aware of gambling? Of course I do. I don't plan on putting a bet on the rest of my life, but I don't let the past control me. And I think referring to myself as a gambler is a negative. It's negative kind of affirmations. So I try and encourage people to have positive affirmations where they say, you know what, I'm smashing the day. I've got no gambling thoughts. I'm thinking positive all the time. Rather than just always beating yourself up, because I think that's how relapse happens, is because you start feeling bad about yourself, like what you did when you were in addiction, or I certainly did, and you just think, oh, fuck it, I'll go back gambling.
Yeah.
So,
and with the word, alcoholic, I only use it when I'm talking about subjects like this. With anything that I do, I never use the word alcoholic. I hate it with a passion. And I hate the word alcoholism. I hate the word alcoholic, and I hate the word or people identifying as an alcoholic. And a lot of it is for your reason, is that the word, in regards to alcohol, the word alcoholic, number one, doesn't explain the actual issue. It's not an alcohol issue, it's an endorphin issue. So as long as we keep calling people alcoholics, the concentration is, well, alcohol's the problem, alcohol's the problem. It's not. That there's nothing addictive about alcohol. It's the chemical reaction that happens in the brain. So it's the endorphin. So if you want to call someone anything like I could say an ick, call them an endorphaholic. Because that's what it is. But I don't like that either, because the minute that you put a label on someone, they you then identify. Now, the challenge that I struggle with peer support groups is you have to go to a group and say, my name's Bruce and I'm an alcoholic. And the way the subconscious brain works is the more that you repeat something, the more you'll start to believe it. So if you go into meetings and say, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic, then you're always caught in this trap of, I'm an alcoholic, I'm powerless, I will never be able to. And yes, like you won't be able to have a drink, accept the fact that you can't have a drink and move on. And there has to be a moving on to give yourself peace of mind. Otherwise, if you see, you know people yourself that go to meetings and my name is Colin, I'm a gambler, or I'm an alcoholic, or I'm a heroin addict, or and it's like, come on guys, I took drugs for 10 years, but I'll never ever ever introduce myself as a drug addict, never, because I'm not. That was 30 years ago. And I won't go back to taking them because I can't have one joint, one line.
And because you know what it'll do to you, so you can avoid it because you've had past experiences, but you don't dwell on them.
And I don't identify as I'm not. I am Bruce. I'm Bruce Rose. I'm a happily married man. I've got 2 dogs. I run a business. I'm not what I was in my 20s. I'm a completely different person, and I need to live in now, and I need to live in who I am, and not constantly live 20 years ago, because it just drags you down. That's
one of the things that I kind of say in my presentation in my app. It's like what we want in the app is for to be in a world where our habits don't define us. So it's sending that message out that you've had a problem, but park it, be aware of it, but move on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I find so many people say to me, but we talk about going to meetings and stuff, and I suddenly realize, well, I never hi, my name is Bruce and I'm an ex-drug addict, and I'll use it and I'll talk about it when it helps in a situation, but it's not who I am. I left that life about. It's like me going back and saying, well, my name is Bruce and I'm a secondary school child. or I'm a secondary school person, and it's like, no, I left school at 18. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not going to live as a school kid for the rest of my life. I'm now an adult. I've moved on a bit.
No, that's good. I like that. So people maybe listening or watching, or maybe be asking or thinking, Naltrexone, it seems to work. I'll maybe need to look in a bit more about it. So, is there any side effects that come with Naltrexone?
The only side effects, Naltrexone comes on the back of 35 years of research and 125 clinical trials, and there's been many more since, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And they've gone through all the clinical trials for Naltrexone itself. So it's there's no long-term side effects. It's not mood altering. It's not mind altering. It's not addictive. It's not a substitute medication. It's a blocker. It blocks the reward. So it's not a substitute medication. The only side effects that we'll see from it is 10% of people will experience a little bit of nausea on day 1 and day 2. And after they've got through day 1 and day 2, if they've experienced any nausea, there's no side effects at all. Some people will experience a little bit of spaciness on day 1 and day 2, but again, that doesn't last long. 0.5% of people will experience something else that's a reaction to one of the medication or to the blockers that hold the whole thing together. But apart from that, it's a very, very safe medication.
Cool. I appreciate you being honest about that it could potentially have slight side effects to people, but obviously it's very, very small percentage again. So it's pretty safe drug by the sounds of things. What about funding? Have you, when you started Rethink Drink, was it yourself that founded that, or was that?
Yeah, well, I started 7 years. I was the first person in the UK to. There was an organisation that was a charity that was just doing awareness, but I was the first person to pack in my job full time and start it up as a proper one-to-one coaching support program. So that was 7 years ago, and I can't mention it publicly, but I was so, in those days, I was so excited. I thought, I've got a solution to alcohol. I thought, this is incredible.
Aye.
So I actually went on LinkedIn and I took out the premium package on LinkedIn and I messaged every single person I knew who was wealthy or successful in business, every name I could come up with. And I just said, my name is Bruce. It was just a short line. I said, my name is Bruce Rose. I don't have a cure for alcoholism, but I've got the nearest thing to it. Please, can I speak to you about it? And I must have sent 300-400 of them, and I got nothing back. I sent one message out to a UK billionaire, and I got a message back 2 days later and said, you need to come and see me next week. And I'm like, right, okay. So I went down to see them. They lived in a huge place. And I went in to see them and I explained the whole thing. And they turned around and said, well, how much will it cost to run it? Well, sorry, going back a bit, they had a medical background. And when I explained the neurological side of it, they said, that will work. And I went, it does work. And they said, okay, so how much will it cost to run it for the year? And I wasn't expecting anything like that. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I said, it needs a salary. Yeah, I said, I don't know. I said, it needs a salary, a computer, a mobile phone. I can do everything from home. That's all I really need. There's no business, there's no buildings, there's no vehicles, there's nothing else. And so they said, okay, go away, work out how much it costs and email it to me in the morning. And when I went away and I'm thinking, like, how much, what do I put down for a salary? What, I'm like, oh, I don't, look. So I went away and I did it. Long story short, they paid my salary for the first 3 years, which, you know yourself, probably where you are, it's the initial starting part, because you're trying to work and trying to do everything else. But I will never be able to, and I just wish that I could publicly, I said to them, I said, can I mention publicly? And they asked me not to. But I just wish that I could say who it was and just to say thank you to them, because without their support, we wouldn't be where we are. And then I met Matt Brindley further down the track, and Matt had the computer skills and I've got the experience working with the clients. So we put the two things together and then started Rethink Drink. And now we don't make, well, we break even each month if we're lucky. So everyone seems to think, oh, you're getting rich off the vulnerable, and I'm thinking, I wish I was.
and again, it's like, I've spent tens of thousands starting up what I've done, and I didn't start it up to make money. Not far from it, but there's a time where I want to get a return, and I believe that, like I say, that there's so many free abstinence models out there that aren't getting the success rate that I believe I could get with the app, with the techniques to rewire the brain. Very similar to your way of thinking, although it's not got the Naltrexone to go with it. But I believe if you've got an addiction, you can't like feel sorry for yourself and sit on the couch and why me? The only way that change is going to happen is if you get up and start trying to put actions in place, controls in place to try and change the way that you think. And I'm a firm believer in that you need to rewire your thought process to finally break free from the addiction. Like I say, I'm just shy of 2.5 years. Gambling was on my mind from the minute I woke up to the minute I went to sleep at night. Every single thing I'd done revolved around gambling, and I believe I'm very rare. In fact, I wouldn't say never, because I have had fleeting thoughts about gambling, but I do believe that I'm past the stage of worrying, am I going to relapse, or is it because I've done the hard graft. It didn't come easy. It didn't happen in a month. It didn't. I look back at my journaling after a month, and I had a lot of bad days, but I made it through them. And see, looking at them now, it makes you feel good, because that's the sort of thing that builds a good recovery.
Are there stats for relapse with gambling?
I think it's very similar. It's very high. You're kind of 90%. Like I say, I went into meeting groups 7 or 8 times, 7 or 8 different occasions as well, and there's some core the people, but a lot of them are in and out the doors. I mean, you see it when you're there, and it's just no for some people. Like, a lot of people have meetings at their work during the day, and needing to go at a certain time to a meeting as well. I think it just, we need to evolve with the times. We need technology. You can go online. There's loads of different methods to tackle it, and I think we need to embrace them.
I remember going to it was a Change for Growth or something. It was a Scottish organisation that works rural change for growth or something it was called. And they had someone talking in about gambling. And what I didn't realise was that even a lot of the kids' games that they play on the consoles and stuff, that once you get to a certain level and you get given a reward of some sort, like something you can either cash in for money, or you can buy some more guns or some more something to get you to the next level. And it said even those games are teaching kids that if you do this, 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 and this, and get to that level, we'll give you a reward that you can either cash in for something. And it's
again, it kind of opens up the same kind of neural pathways to your brain to be craving that reward. I'm getting a new gun, or I'm getting a new player on whatever. It's loot boxes, I think they're called. Let's say I was never a big gamer myself, but I've heard stories. I had somebody contact me that said they'd lost £100,000 playing games, and it was saying that they're addicted to gambling because they'd obviously researched into how they're doing this. They couldn't stop buying these, and a lot of games when we were younger, you would play them and you would finish it and you would complete it, and then that's the game done. But I think the games nowadays, for what I understand, is you didn't complete it. You just keep kind of going round in circles, and you're wanting the stuff. So that's why that, like, the gaming industry makes more money than the film and music industry combined in the UK. Wow. That's a amazing stat. Well, amazing is probably not the right word, but it just shows how big the kind of gambling side of things has came into gaming, and that's how they make their money.
And the thing that I never, until I started listening to your stuff and speaking to you and stuff, I never realized the number one thing that hit me about gambling was with alcohol. I mean, our guys that we would classify as chronic drinkers will be drinking a bottle of vodka plus. Well, around that, say it's a bottle of vodka is chronic drinking.
A day, is that?
Yeah, a day. So,
right.
So if someone's drinking a bottle of vodka a day, a bottle of whiskey, even if they're drinking 2, which is really heavy, then they, at that stage, you're going to Lidl's, you're going to you're going to the supermarket to buy your vodka. Now, your bottle of vodka is 17, 18, 19 quid or something. So if you're buying 1 bottle, that's 20 quid a day. If you're buying 2, which is extreme, that's costing you 40 quid a day. And people go, 40 quid a day is a lot. But I'm guessing with gambling, I mean, you could have spent 40 quid in 5 minutes.
Well, you could. They brought the slot machines online, the limits down from £10 maximum a spin to £5 maximum spin, as if that's going to make a difference. So you could bet £5 a spin, and there's a spin every 2.5 seconds. So you could lose £40 in less than 20 seconds. So, and that's deemed acceptable. And that's the sort of things that gambling's never going to get better until people within the space trying to make change actually want to make change. Because for me, £5 a spin is just not acceptable for someone. for anyone. Like, who could afford to lose that sort of money?
That's scary.
But
That's
it's
scary.
deemed acceptable. Let us say it's just no good enough. And aye, so one of the things that I wanted to say is what I like so much about what you're doing is because you believe in what you're doing. Very similar to how I feel about what I'm doing. I believe that, like, I'm not doing it to make money. I'm doing it because I want to make a difference. And sometimes I feel like I'm battering my head off the wall because you're literally no getting anywhere. And I didn't believe, or I didn't feel that I've got a voice right now. I would love to have a voice more in the future, and I'm glad we're having these conversations about various different things, because I think it needs to be called out for what it is, because that's the only way we get change, and that's the only way that we alternatives come to the table, is when we have these conversations. If we just keep saying, you know what, that they're doing really well, or that's a great organisation, are we being true to ourselves?
And
so
I think it's. I mean, whatever you do, don't stop with it, because there has to be. I mean, you're talking about, and I've started to realise it's worse than gambling as well. But when I worked in rehab, the number of funerals that I had to go to because people had lost their fight with alcohol, and it doesn't. If you've got a 90% relapse rate, then people are just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I'm guessing it's the same with gambling as well. And the loss of lives, I'm so used to talking on TikTok where you talk about, you don't use certain words, but the loss of life through gambling is so much higher. And it's a silent thing, because if someone's drinking a bottle of vodka, they're drinking a bottle of vodka because they're kind of out of it all day. But if someone's gambling, whatever, 2, 3, 4 grand a day, no one knows about it. But the reason that what drives me is that today alcohol dependency is completely treatable. So I had a lady like I said this morning on my TikTok this morning, who said she had lost her son 14 weeks ago. That shouldn't be happening. There are people today, or people that will listen to this, who are struggling with gambling, and not one person should be struggling today. There is a neurological solution for gambling, for alcohol, for drugs right across the board. It's just that the powers to be are not using it. And it's like you said, it is wrong. It's affecting individuals, it's affecting families. People, especially with gambling and drink, they're losing jobs, they're losing businesses, they're losing families, children, they're losing. It's just wrong.
And the thing is, like, from like, I could totally relate to how people feel like they didn't want to be here, they want to take their own life, because I was there. I would genuinely was. I used to wake up every morning and think about how I'm going to do it, and I had everything in my life that I could ever want. I had a big house, a beautiful girlfriend, a nice car, good job, but I was in heavy amounts of debt, and it was getting worse. And let us say I was trying to get solutions, and I was feeling worse about myself each time. So it was to the point where I was like, I need to take action here. And I know there's so many other people out there want to do that. So from the outside looking in, people probably thought, oh, he's got a great life. And that's what social media does. Kind of portrays that you've got everything. Whereas in my own body, I was dying each day. I was dying. I was kind of, if I was still gambling now, I don't know if I would have done it, because I did feel like I just wanted the pain to go away that I was creating. I didn't want to be here, but I just felt each time I was just, I was totally numb to what I was doing. And it's hearing people, and when people reach out to me, there was somebody that reached out last night saying that their 17-year-old son has got a gambling problem and it's wrecking the whole family. And it's like, I fear for him, because she was like, what can I do? He's tried to, she actually says, I've reached out to charities and they've not even got back to her. And I'm like, I didn't want, I'm like, he needs to be honest with you and tell you about the problem, and just because it will get worse. Like I remember my mum when I was in my 20s, she said, I think my sister went to see a psychic, and they said that I was going to something about the brother, and he was going to be in his 30s before he stopped doing whatever he was doing. And I remember mum was greeting and everything. She's like, "Oh, I can't cope with you if you're going to go into your 30s." And I ended up 40. I was 40-year-old when I stopped gambling. So I could see these young people being in the same boat. If there's no the solutions out there or the options out there to get them in a better place, and who knows, the guy could maybe not be here, Ken, because he's not getting the support he deserves.
Yeah, absolutely. And my fascination is that from the start of Naltrexone, there was a guy called David Sinclair in Finland who, in the 60s, the Finnish government paid him. He had an open checkbook and said, "We want you to find a solution to alcohol addiction." So he then went and did a whole bunch he did 30 years of research. He found Naltrexone, and today Naltrexone has a 78% success rate. And the 22% that it doesn't work for are simply people who don't take the medication. So if you read between fill in the blanks, if you take the medication, it's pretty good. But from that research, he then realized that it's a neurological process, as is any addiction. So everything that, whether it's drink or drugs or gambling, it's doing something in the brain that's creating a chemical in the brain that's hitting the receptor in the brain and giving a reward. And therefore it's that's that chemical in the brain and how it makes you feel that you become addicted to. And so therefore we know that it's here. So all it would take is for the governments to sit down and say, okay, now we are fighting a gambling industry, we're fighting an alcohol industry, we're fighting government that are making millions or billions out of tax revenue out the whole thing. And that's the issue. So, but if in a great world, we know that it's a neurological condition. So all it would take is government. That yes, a billionaire could come along and say, "Hey, listen, I want to invest in this or do something in it," but
you're fighting against too many people that, like, let's say they've probably got jobs trying to create, like, to fix the problem. That's their job, to fix the problem. That's what I've kind of find. I've seen so many people that are trying to fix the problem, but they're not actually doing it. They're not calling out the right people. They're basically singing from, in my kind of sector anyway, the gambling industry's tune. They're singing the gambling industry's tune. So how like the gambling industry didn't want to get rid of the problem. They create the problem. They design the machines to be addictive. They design their products to be addictive. So for as long as the charities and organisations are getting funded by the people who are creating the problem, with no chance. And that's when you feel like you're batting your head off the wall. But I said right from the start, when I started doing it, I'm doing it my way. I'm not jumping on anybody's. There was a guy when I first started as well. He was like what you do. I could open doors for you. As soon as I seen what it was like, I didn't want any doors open, because I'd be selling my soul. I'd be not able to sleep at night because I'd be trying to get money off. I'd just be going against all my morals, and that is one thing. It's probably one of the proudest things that I've done in this kind of recovery with Gambling Leap, is staying in my own lane and no going down a route that would be almost as bad as me going back to gambling, I believe.
Absolutely, and I agree, because the one thing that I've learned, I've been doing this 7 years now. The one thing that I've learned is people said to me, "Well, why don't you become a charity, and there's lots of funding out there to get the help." And the reason that I don't do it was, in the early days, I've got to be very careful how I word this. I went to a large organization that works in, it's a charity that works in rehab. So I went to I know the CEO of that organization, and he is the nicest man you will ever meet. He's an absolute gentleman, and he's got such a heart for people who struggle with alcohol and drugs. They've got a bunch of rehabs. And I went to him and I said, listen, this is crazy. This is working. And I knew the guy, and I said, listen, give me 5 of your members of staff and I will train them free of charge. And you've got the big organization, you can open up the doors, you've got the funding available.
Just recreate it.
Absolutely. I thought this is the way to go with it.
Aye.
And I explained the whole thing to him, and you just saw his face getting sadder and sadder and sadder. And I'm thinking something's not right as I was talking to him. And I said, so what do you think? And he said, Bruce, he said, I know you, and I know that you wouldn't come and just tell me something that, he said, I know what you're saying is true. And he said, however, I run a charity and I've got 200 members of staff. And he said, we have to raise millions every year to pay the salaries, to pay everything else. All of the money that I get from funding is given to us on the go ahead. Our funders tell us how we do things. So our funders are telling us we have to run an abstinence-based program. If I started to introduce our program, you have to drink initially for it to work. So if I said to them, we're going to introduce something where you have to drink and use medication, all our funding would stop, and I would have to pay off 200 people. I can't use it. And I'm thinking, that's wrong. That's wrong. And then I'm thinking, that's why I don't want to be a charity, because the funders then determine how you spend the money. And the bigger that you get, they're in control. The funders control what you do. Whereas when you're private, then actually, hang on a minute, there's a new medication that's come out. Let's use that because that's working better.
You're looking for genuine solutions.
Absolutely.
And again, that's how I believe I'm doing. I'm looking for genuine solutions that work. And I was in a similar position where I started a community group, and I spoke to the girl so there's going to be a statutory levy in Scotland. So I thought I should surely be in a good position to do it. I was basically told, I didn't even get to finish my sentence, and it was like, no, you need to join one of these established charities. And I'm like, but that's not what I'm doing. That's not what I want to do. I've set up Gambling Leap because I believe in it. I've invested a lot of money into it. Although some of the principles are the same as what these charities are going with, it's different, and it's let's say it's working towards end goals, solutions, and no just trying to keep the ball rolling. But it's just so hard when you're kind of almost on your own. You've not really got a voice, and I would love to be in the position one day where I've properly got a voice to properly speak about it, like what we're speaking about now. Let's say I think it's important conversations, but it would just get drowned out if I do it in the wrong room. So it's being able to build yourself in a position where you have got a voice and people listen. And it maybe never will happen, but I'd love to be at the stage where people do listen, and I'm sure you'd be the same.
And I'm guessing, I mean, you'll be kicking against down the track. I don't know how the tax. I mean, all these, the bookies and everything, or all the online places are paying tax on all their profits, and there must be millions and millions that the government are making out of it. So I hate to say it, but I'm getting used to say it now. It's, do they actually want a solution?
So they actually they put the taxes up on the betting companies, especially like the online casinos and stuff, because that's the highly addictive product. So now, but is that money got to go back into research? Is it going to go back into the right areas that people that are genuinely wanting for solutions? It's not, because I've asked if I get money, and I was basically told point blank no. So it kind of gives me a wee bit more hunger to keep going and doing what I'm doing. I've obviously got a purpose nowadays doing this, and I kind of thought when I first started it, I thought, will I still have the same passion in a year's time, in 2 years' time? But I think I've got even more passion because I believe in it even more through research, through listening to guys like yourself talking that clearly know their stuff. And it's like we're like what you say is totally different. Like I never even heard about the neurological side of gambling or addiction before I started looking into it myself, and I never hear anybody else really talking about it that are looking for solutions. And it's clear, there's evidence that's what it is. So why are we saying, like, you get people doing awareness talks, and it's William Hill that's the sponsor. So they're obviously not able to say what they want because it's a betting company that are providing the money. So for me, it's like you're never ever going to get solutions. It's like, oh, we're doing a great job because we're doing these awareness talks. It's like, right, awareness talks are powerful because I've done some myself. I know how powerful the room could be when you're doing them, but you're maybe doing it to 30 people. You need to get out to thousands of people. The message needs to be stronger, and taking money off the betting industry to do it, it's just no for me, or it's just ridiculous. I could speak about it all day, but we'll just kind of end up. I'll just ask what kind of plans you got for 2026. Are you got just plug away with what you're doing, or obviously you do your TikTok lives and stuff, which are really, really good. I'll put all your links to your TikTok and pages for people that have obviously are listening in. Hopefully you get some new followers, because your TikTok lives, like I say, they're very informative, and anybody that kind of questions your method, you've got the facts to back it up to shoot them down. So I enjoy listening to them.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And for this year, we've I've been doing it now for 7 years personally myself, but I started with Matt 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So we're now just getting Rethink Drink to a level. Our next stage is we've had an app up and running for a while, and we've got website. We've got 3 different programs that we work with people with. And we've now got to a level, at the moment, I'm working with about 40 different clients, and doing all of that one-to-one becomes hard work, and there's only so much that you can do. And because of the success of what we're doing, what we're now trying to do is develop an online program. So we want to make sure that we keep the one-to-one connection, but we want to use technology. We want to use, this is where Matt's skills come into all. And we want to make sure that we're going to create, with AI and everything else, an online platform, so that there's going to be a bunch of training material. There's going to be videos. There'll be nutrition stuff. There'll be health and fitness. There'll be cold water therapy videos. There'll be a whole bunch of stuff on how to deal with it, but there's also be training for the program. So that will be all in video version. But then we also make sure that we're going to do more group work. We're going to do more family support, and we're going to do, but all of that's going to be done face to face and through videos, and through, not through videos, through group meetings and through one-to-one. So we're going to keep the one-to-one stuff. But we're going to add a whole bunch more to it, so that it's, and then what we can then do is we can package it, and we can then use it corporately as well. So we can go to companies and say, listen, instead of you putting someone who's struggling with alcohol through disciplinary, through all the HR stuff, through all of that, and then having to get rid of them, and then re-employing people and going through all of that, we can offer you a program for the company, and the company can have a support program, and we can come in and, like you, go in and do talks. But we can also do the support for the companies all over the place. It can go huge if we wanted it to, but it's like you. We've got to build it.
Aye, no, I could totally relate to what you're saying. Like I said, a lot of the stuff that I've been getting developed on the app is similar kind of stuff. It's just centered around like well-being and trying to build that feeling good about yourself rather than feeling down. And I do believe that you could get out to like workplaces. It's like, what what have they got in place for someone with an alcohol problem? What have you got in place for people dealing with addiction, or that are always off sick? Is there a process that you go into, like you've been off sick 3 times where Mondays because you're out every Sunday? And it's like, right, how do we tackle this? Because I do believe, like you said earlier, there's a shift where people are like maybe not quite drinking so much or taking their well-being more serious. And I think it's a good time to kind of be in the space where change should be possible, and I think it will be possible. It's just sticking with your methods and believing what you do.
And with alcohol, I'm sure it's the same with gambling as well, that the other issue that I've got with the word alcoholic is it creates a very black and white scenario. So you're an alcoholic or you're not. I've got a problem or I don't, or I've got an issue with gambling or I don't. It's all very black and white. But the reality of the whole process is, whether it's gambling, drink, or drugs, it's a progressive process. So someone can be dependent on alcohol at 4 bottles of wine a week. Someone can be dependent on gambling on just going into the bookie on a Saturday afternoon. And same with drugs. So it's a progressive process. So going into unfortunately, most organizations, when people go and look for help, is with alcohol when they're drinking every day and they're on the verge of losing a family or something. With gambling when they're then 50 grand in debt, 100 grand in debt. But the beauty of the process now is that it's a progressive process, so it can be caught. With workplaces, you can catch it even before it becomes a problem.
Aye, definitely, and that's what I'm. So I've got an event. I don't know if you know it, for a launch event for the app. So I'm kind of trying to get a lot of businesses, school teachers, colleges, just along to have that conversation. I think an open conversation about how we tackle it early. We get into young kids to try and get them to develop good habits rather than bad habits, or be aware how a habit could develop. Like maybe a gambling on the coupons at the weekend, most people could probably be fine with it, but it's being aware that when it could develop into a problem. And I think that's a conversation we should be having. And I've actually had a really good response so far. So as many people we can get to that event, the better. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And I would love to, and I'll have a chat to you off air at some stage, but I would love to, in Scotland anyway, with people who are looking at it from a modern approach, a progressive approach. I would love to start a group of like-minded people who are doing, like you're doing, what we're doing.
Aye.
But people who are moving forward in a new, and so that we can add our resources or our voices.
Absolutely. I think if it's like-minded people and people that are looking for the solutions. If we all work together, I don't know possibilities in the future. It was certainly something I'd be open to. I'm sure you'd be open to, but we're probably not at that stage. We need to kind of push on with what we're doing. But like I say, I love what you do, and that's one of the reasons why I was really wanting to get you on. So I really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully it gets out to a few people. It opens up a different kind of outlook to some people as well. We've spoke quite a lot about the different methods in this podcast to stop drinking alcohol, maybe stop drinking gambling. It's not to say that we're against certain methods that's out there. We're both in agreement with that, but we want to look at different options that have got proven success rate, and it's just open and a different outlook. So again, thanks for coming on, and I really appreciate it.
No, thanks, Colin.
Cheers, bud.